I wasn't alone.
For 11 days, the town searched the forest. They searched through rain, through mud, through the kind of silence that makes grown men stop calling a child's name. Because deep down, they're afraid something might answer back. Then, on the 12th night, police lights washed over the trees. Red, blue, and there she was, a little girl standing barefoot at the edge of the forest. Her clothes were torn, her hair was tangled, her skin was covered in dirt. But she was not crying. This is Elderpine, a quiet mountain town where everyone knew each other's name, and where children were still allowed to play outside until the streetlights came on. But all of that changed when 9-year-old Mara Bell walked into the forest behind her home and never came back. At first, people believed she had simply wandered too far. A child chasing fireflies, a wrong turn between the trees, a small mistake that would be corrected by morning. But morning came, and Mara was still gone. Hundreds searched for her, neighbors, police, volunteers from nearby towns. They covered every trail, every creek bed, every abandoned cabin within 10 miles. But the dogs lost her scent. Not at a river, not at a road, but deep inside the forest. As if Mara had simply disappeared from the earth. Helicopters found nothing. Thermal cameras found nothing. No footprints, no torn fabric, no sign of a struggle. For 11 nights, Elderpine held its breath. Then, on the 11th night, Mara came back, alone, barefoot, and somehow, alive. But after Mara returned, people around her began vanishing, one by one, and soon, the question was no longer where Mara had been, but what had followed her home. Elderpine was the kind of town people passed through, but rarely stayed in. Cold, quiet, isolated, a place tucked between mountains, and surrounded on every side by forest. Not just ordinary forest, thick forest, old forest, the kind of forest that made the town feel small. No matter how many homes they built beside it, locals believed parts of those woods were older than Elderpine itself, older than the roads, older than the church, older than the first families who came there looking for land, and decided to build their lives beneath the shadow of the trees. And from the time children were old enough to understand fear, they were taught one rule: never enter the woods after sunset. Parents said it like a warning. Grandparents said it like a prayer. Before dinner, before bedtime, before every camping trip, every shortcut, every dare from a friend. Stay out of the forest when the light goes. Because in Elderpine, sunset did not just mean darkness. It meant the woods belonged to something else. Hunters talked about it in low voices. They said the forest changed at night. One moment, there would be owls calling, branches moving, small animals running under the brush. And then suddenly, nothing. No birds, no insects, no leaves shifting in the wind. Just silence. A silence so complete, it felt like the whole forest was listening. The older residents had their own stories. They spoke of places between the trees. Places you could not find on a map. Places where the ground looked normal. The path looked safe, and the trees stood just far enough apart to invite you in. But if you stepped through the wrong space, at the wrong time, you could keep walking forever. And never come out. Mara Bell had heard those stories all her life. But Mara was not a reckless child. She was quiet, imaginative, the kind of little girl who noticed things other people stepped over. A white stone shaped like a heart. A red leaf trapped in frost. A feather caught on a fence. To Mara, the world was full of small treasures. And she collected them like secrets. She lived with her mother, Clara Bell, just the two of them. Her father had died 2 years earlier. And after that, their home became quieter. Clara worked long hours. Mara spent more time alone. Drawing, collecting, dreaming, and sometimes, standing at the back window, watching the forest like it was watching her back. The day Mara disappeared, nothing seemed unusual. It was cold, but not stormy. Quiet, but not empty. The kind of evening Elderpine had seen 1,000 times before. Mara was outside behind the house, playing near the backyard while her mother prepared dinner. Inside, Clara Bell moved between the stove and the kitchen table. A pot boiling, plates set out for two. The radio playing softly in the background. Every few minutes, she looked through the window and saw Mara in the yard. Still there, still safe, still close enough to call. At exactly 5:42 p.m., Clara opened the back door and called her daughter inside. Dinner was almost ready. The air was getting colder, and the last light was slipping behind the trees. She called once, then again, but Mara did not answer. At first, Clara thought Mara was hiding. Maybe behind the shed, maybe near the fence, maybe playing one of those quiet little games children invent, where only they know the rules. But the backyard was empty. The shed was empty. And Mara's notebook was lying open in the grass, as if she had put it down for just 1 second. Then Clara saw it, near the forest line, hanging from a low branch. Mara's red scarf, the same scarf Clara had wrapped around her neck that morning. It moved lightly in the wind, like someone had placed it there on purpose. Police assumed what everyone feared. Mara had wandered into the woods. Maybe she followed an animal. Maybe she saw something near the trees. Maybe she walked too far and got turned around. Within an hour, search teams arrived. Neighbors joined. Flashlights cut through the dark. Names echoed between the trunks. Mara, Mara, Mara. But the dogs behaved strangely. They followed Mara's scent for 200 feet. Straight through the brush. Past the first line of trees. Past a fallen log. Then they stopped. All of them. At the edge of a perfect circle of dead leaves. No footprints beyond it. No broken branches. No scent continuing forward. One handler stood there for a long moment, staring at the ground. Then he said quietly, it was like she disappeared into the ground. By the second day, the search for Mara Bell had grown beyond Elderpine. Police from neighboring towns arrived. Volunteers came with flashlights, radios, blankets, and hope. They moved through the forest in long, uneven lines, calling her name until their voices cracked. But the forest gave them nothing back. Then the rain came. For 3 straight days. It fell without mercy. It washed away tracks. It flooded the narrow trails. It turned the forest floor into black mud. And every hour that passed made the truth harder to say out loud. A 9-year-old child, alone in those woods, could not survive much longer. At night, the temperature dropped low enough to numb fingers. Searchers began finding less, saying less, looking at Clara differently, not without kindness, but with the kind of pity people try to hide when hope is becoming too painful to carry. Then the strange reports began. A hunter claimed he heard a child laughing deep in the trees. At 2 in the morning. Not crying, not screaming. Laughing, a soft little laugh, moving between the trunks. Always just far enough away that he could not tell where it came from. The next day, a volunteer found tiny barefoot prints in the mud, small enough to belong to a child, fresh enough to make every officer stop talking. But the prints did not lead out of the forest. They led farther in, step by step, toward the darkest part of the woods, as if Mara had not been trying to escape, but walking willingly back. Then Clara began receiving phone calls, always from an unknown number, always after midnight. She would answer, say Mara's name, beg whoever was there to speak, but no one ever did. There was only breathing, faint, slow, close to the receiver, and behind it, the sound of wind moving through trees. By the 7th night, Clara stopped sleeping. She left every light on. She kept Mara's bedroom door open. She sat with her phone in her lap, waiting for it to ring again. Because even if the calls terrified her, a part of her believed, somehow, her daughter was still on the other end. Then, on the 10th night, Clara heard tapping on her bedroom window. 3 soft taps. Tap, tap, tap. But Clara's room was on the 2nd floor. When she finally found the courage to look outside, there was nothing there. No ladder, no branch close enough to touch the glass, no face staring back, only darkness. But in the morning, mud was smeared across the window, from the outside. At 3:17 a.m. on the 11th night, Elder Pine was asleep. The search had been suspended until morning. The rain had finally stopped. And for the first time in days, the town was quiet. Then a neighbor looked out her window and saw someone standing under a streetlight. At first, she thought it was a trick of the light. A coat hanging from a signpost. A shadow from the trees. Something the mind creates when it has spent too many nights afraid. But then the figure moved. Just slightly. And the neighbor saw the face. It was Mara Bell. She was barefoot, pale, covered in scratches. Her clothes were damp with mud. Her lips were almost blue from the cold. But in her hands, she was holding something. A bundle of black feathers, pressed tightly against her chest, as if it was the only thing she had brought back from wherever she had been. Within minutes, lights came on across the street. Doors opened. Someone called the police. Someone screamed Clara's name, and when Clara Bell saw her daughter standing beneath that streetlight, she ran. No shoes, no coat buttoned, no thought of the cold. Only Mara, only her child, alive. Clara fell to her knees and pulled Mara into her arms. She cried into her daughter's hair. She whispered her name again and again. But Mara did not hug her back. She did not cry. She did not ask to go home. She just stood there, stiff in her mother's arms, looking past her, toward the trees. Doctors expected the worst. After 11 nights in the forest, they expected fever, severe dehydration, hypothermia, broken bones, infection. But Mara had none of it. Her scratches were shallow, her pulse was steady, her body temperature was low, but not dangerously low, for a child who had vanished into the woods for 11 days. Mara looked impossible. When police asked where she had been, Mara lowered her eyes. Her voice was so quiet. The officer had to lean closer. And then she whispered, "Under the trees." When they asked who helped her survive, Mara looked toward the window and said, "The smiling woman." At first, everyone said Mara was in shock. They said trauma could change a child. That after 11 days alone in the forest, fear could make ordinary things feel unsafe. So when Mara refused to sleep in her bedroom, Clara tried not to panic. She made a small bed for her in the hallway. A blanket, a pillow, a nightlight, anything that made Mara feel safe. But Mara never said she was afraid of her room. She only said, "It was too quiet in there." Then came the food. Before she disappeared, Mara ate almost anything Clara made. Chicken soup, meat pies, Sunday roast. But after she came back, she refused to eat meat. Not once, not even a bite. Clara thought it was nausea. The doctors called it stress. But when Clara asked why, Mara stared at the plate and whispered, "It remembers." By the third day, Mara started drawing. Not flowers, not stones, not the small treasures she used to collect. Only one image. Again, and again, and again. A tall woman standing between black trees. Her body stretched too high. Her arms too long. Her fingers too many to count. And where her face should have been, Mara always drew the same thing. A smile, wide, still, waiting. Clara tried to comfort her. She sat beside her, brushed her hair, held her hand, told her she was home now, told her nothing in the forest could hurt her anymore. But Mara barely listened. Her eyes kept drifting to empty corners of the room, as if someone else was standing there, someone only she could see. At night, Clara began hearing whispers, soft at first, so soft she thought it was the wind. Then words, Mara's voice, low, careful, like she was trying not to wake someone. Clara stood behind her bedroom door and listened, and what she heard made her blood turn cold. Mara whispered, "No, you can't take her yet." The next morning, Clara found the back door unlocked, the chain hanging loose, the deadbolt turned, and Mara standing in front of it, barefoot, motionless, staring into the forest, not scared, not confused, almost peaceful. Clara asked her what she was doing. Mara did not turn around. She only looked through the glass, toward the place where she had vanished, and said, "She's waiting." The first person to disappear after Mara came home was Deputy Alan Pike. He was not a stranger to the Bell family. He had been there the night Mara vanished. He helped organize the search. He stood beside Clara when the dogs stopped at the circle of dead leaves. And he was one of the first officers to question Mara after she returned. That afternoon, Pike came to the house for a follow-up statement. Nothing official. Nothing harsh. Just a few more questions. About the forest. About the feathers. About the person Mara claimed had helped her survive. The smiling woman. But the moment Pike entered the room, Mara changed. She would not look at him. Not once. When Clara asked what was wrong, Mara shook her head. When Pike said her name, she covered her ears. And when he asked about the smiling woman, Mara began to cry. Not loudly. Not like a frightened child. Quietly, as if she already knew something terrible was coming. Pike tried to soften his voice. He told her she was safe. He told her no one was angry. He only wanted to know who the woman was. That was when Mara looked past him, toward the empty air behind his chair, and whispered, "You said her name inside your head." No one spoke after that. Not Clara. Not Pike. Even the small recorder on the table seemed too loud. Pike ended the interview less than a minute later. He told Clara he would come back another day. But before he left, Mara said one more thing. So quietly, Clara almost missed it. "Don't answer when she knocks." That night, Deputy Pike disappeared. His final radio check came just after midnight. He said he was driving past the north edge of Elderpine Forest, where the trees grew close to the road, and where the fog sometimes swallowed the headlights whole. Then his radio went quiet. They found his patrol car at sunrise, parked beside the forest, driver's door wide open, radio still on. No sign of a struggle. No blood. No broken glass. No Deputy Pike. His flashlight was found standing upright in the dirt, pointing toward the trees. And around the car, there were no footprints, except one set, small, barefoot, circling the patrol car again and again, before leading back into the forest. After Deputy Pike vanished, Elderpine changed. People stopped speaking loudly in public. Neighbors who once waved from their porches now watched each other from behind curtains. And every conversation, no matter where it began, always ended with Mara Bell. The second disappearance came 4 days later. Mrs. Helen Elwood, Mara's school counselor, had asked to visit Clara's home. She told the principal she was worried about Mara. Not because Mara was dangerous, but because she seemed trapped inside herself. Like part of her had never left the forest. Mrs. Elwood spoke softly. She brought crayons, paper, a little stuffed rabbit from the school office. She did not push. She did not accuse. She only asked Mara if she wanted to draw what happened in the woods. At first, Mara said nothing. Then she picked up a black crayon and drew a door between 2 trees. Mrs. Elwood asked what the door was. Mara whispered, "That's where she listens." Then Mrs. Elwood asked the question everyone kept asking. What happened in the forest? Mara looked up at her and began to cry. That night, Mrs. Elwood disappeared. Her car was found outside the school, locked, keys still in her coat pocket, which was folded neatly on the driver's seat. On the windshield, someone had drawn a circle in mud. Then came Caleb Ross, a search volunteer, one of the men who had spent 11 days calling Mara's name through the woods. Caleb told police he had seen something on his security camera. At first, he thought it was a glitch. A shadow, a branch moving in the wind. But when he paused the footage, he saw a woman standing behind Mara. Tall, still, half hidden between the trees. And smiling. Caleb said he was taking the footage to the station. He never made it there. His truck was found on the roadside. Engine still warm. Driver's door open. And the laptop shattered on the passenger seat. The memory card was gone. By then, the pattern was impossible to ignore. Deputy Pike, Mrs. Elwood, Caleb Ross, each one had spoken to Mara. Each one had asked what happened in the forest. And each one vanished soon after. The town began to split in two. Some whispered that Mara had brought something back. Others said she was still just a frightened little girl, a victim of whatever had followed her home. But fear does not wait for proof. And in Elderpine, fear was already choosing sides. The next morning, Caleb Ross's wife walked into the Elderpine police station, carrying the one thing Caleb never got to deliver, a copy of his security camera recording. She told officers Caleb had saved it before he left the house. He had been scared, not confused, not curious, scared, and before he drove away, he told her something was standing behind Mara. At first, the footage showed nothing unusual, just Caleb's backyard at night, a wooden fence, a patch of wet grass, the black wall of trees beyond it. Then Caleb walked into frame, barefoot, wearing the same clothes he disappeared in. And he was not alone. Or at least, he did not seem to believe he was. He stood near the edge of the yard, talking to someone off camera. His voice was too low to understand, but his body said enough. His shoulders were tight, his hands were raised slightly, like he was trying to calm someone down, or convince them to stay back. Then Caleb slowly turned his head toward the woods. For 2 seconds, only 2 seconds, something appeared between the trees. A tall figure, long black hair, a white face, and a mouth stretched into a smile that did not belong on any living person. It was far away, half hidden by branches, but every officer in that room saw it, and not one of them spoke. Then the camera glitched, the screen bent, the audio cracked, the timestamp jumped backward, then forward, then vanished completely. For 1 second, there was only static, and when the picture returned, Caleb Ross was gone. No footsteps, no scream, no struggle, just an empty yard, and the trees beyond it. Then the microphone picked up a voice. Soft, close, almost directly beneath the camera. A little girl's voice, Mara's voice, whispering, "I told you not to look." But that was impossible, because at the exact moment Caleb disappeared, Mara was asleep at home. Clara was sitting beside her. The hallway light was on. The front door was locked. The back door was chained. And Mara Bell had not moved all night. Clara searches Mara's room and finds drawings hidden under the mattress. They show the forest, missing people, and a dark opening inside a tree. In one drawing, Mara is shown holding hands with the smiling woman. In another, the missing people are standing in a line behind her. But the most disturbing drawing shows Clara herself inside the forest. Above the drawing, Mara has written, "Mother is next if I don't go back." Clara confronts Mara. Mara breaks down and reveals that she never escaped. She says the forest let her come home, because something wanted to follow her. The smiling woman told Mara, "Bring me the ones who ask questions." That night, Clara did not sleep. She lay in bed with her eyes open. listening to every sound in the house, every creak, every breath, every small shift of wood beneath the floor. She had read Mara's drawings. She had heard her confession. And now Clara understood one thing clearly. If Mara went back into the forest, she might never see her daughter again. Then the clock changed. 3:17 a.m. The same hour Mara had returned. The same hour Caleb vanished. The same hour the town had learned to fear. From the hallway, Clara heard soft footsteps, bare feet against wood, slow, careful, moving toward the stairs. Mara moved through the house without hesitation. She did not stumble. She did not look around. She walked like someone following a voice only she could hear. At the back door, she reached up, turned the lock, slid the chain free, and stepped outside into the cold. Clara waited 3 seconds, then followed her. The air outside was freezing. Clara's flashlight trembled in her hand. Ahead of her, Mara crossed the backyard barefoot, as if she could not feel the cold. She passed the fence, past the spot where her red scarf had been found, then stepped between the trees, and Clara went after her. Mara knew the way. That was what terrified Clara most. Her daughter moved through the forest like she had walked that path every night of her life. No hesitation, no wrong turns, no fear. Clara followed as quietly as she could. But every branch seemed to reach for her. Every root seemed placed to make her fall. And the deeper they went, the less the world sounded real. Then the forest went silent. Not quiet, silent. No insects, no birds, no wind. Even Clara's own breathing sounded wrong. Too loud, too close, as if the trees were holding it and giving it back to her. She wanted to call Mara's name, but something inside her warned her not to. That was when the whispers began. From the left, from the right, from somewhere behind her, voices she recognized from town. Deputy Pike, Mrs. Elwood, Caleb Ross, soft, broken, barely human anymore, all whispering the same warning. Again and again, don't let her see your face. Then Mara stopped. In front of her stood an enormous dead tree, split open like a wound. Inside the hollow, the darkness moved. Clara lifted the flashlight, and from inside that dead tree, something smiled. For a moment, Clara could not move. The thing inside the tree was shaped almost like a woman. Tall, thin, bent in places a body should not bend. Her long black hair hung over her shoulders like wet rope. Her skin was pale as candle wax. And that smile never changed. Not when Clara screamed. Not when Mara began to cry. Not when the woman opened her mouth and spoke Clara's name. The voice did not sound loud. It did not need to. It seemed to come from the tree, from the ground, from every dark space between the branches. And it said, "The child belongs to the forest now." Clara stepped in front of Mara. Her hands were shaking. Her knees nearly gave out. But she did not move aside. Clara begged, not like a woman speaking to something she understood, but like a mother with nothing left to lose. She begged to take Mara home. She promised never to speak of the forest again, never to let Mara near the trees, never to ask another question. But the smiling woman only tilted her head, as if she found grief interesting. Then she offered Clara a trade. Mara could stay. Mara could sleep in her own house, eat at her mother's table, grow up beneath the same roof. But someone else had to take her place. That was when Clara understood. The forest had not let Mara return out of mercy. It had sent her back as a door, a way to collect the curious, the kind, the worried, the ones who asked too many questions. Mara began sobbing, her small body shaking so hard she could barely stand. And through her tears, she said the words that broke Clara completely. "Mommy, I'm tired of bringing them." For 1 second, Clara saw her daughter again. Not the empty child in the hallway. Not the girl who whispered to corners. Just Mara, her little girl, terrified, exhausted, begging to be saved. So Clara made her choice. She grabbed Mara's hand, turned away from the dead tree, and ran. Behind them, the forest woke up. Leaves rose without wind. Branches cracked above their heads. And from every direction, the trees began whispering Clara's name. Clara, Clara, Clara. The spaces between the trees narrowed. The path twisted where it had been straight. The forest closed around them like a fist. Then one final voice whispered from the dark. Calm, patient, almost laughing. Then we will come ourselves. Somehow, Clara and Mara made it out. They stumbled through the back door before sunrise. Covered in mud, scratched by branches, shaking so badly neither of them could speak. Clara locked every door, every window, every latch. Then she pulled Mara close and waited for morning. But when police arrived later that morning, the Bell house was empty. No signs of struggle, no blood, no broken glass, no forced entry, nothing overturned, nothing missing, except Clara and Mara. It looked as if they had simply stood up, opened the door, and walked away. The only things left behind were Mara's drawings, dozens of them, trees, feathers, the hollow in the dead trunk, the missing people, and one final picture, placed carefully in the center of Mara's bedroom floor. It showed Clara, Mara, Deputy Pike, Mrs. Elwood, Caleb Ross, all standing inside the forest, all facing the same dark opening in the tree. But there was one new figure in the picture. Someone who had never been in Elderpine. Someone who had never stepped into those woods. Someone who only came close to the story by asking what happened. And on the back of the drawing, written in a child's handwriting, were 4 words. You asked questions too.